Welcome to another episode of Healthy, Wealthy, and Wise Retirement Podcast, where certified financial planner Lauren Sherman shares thoughts on having a healthy mind, body, and spirit, an abundance of wealth inside portfolios and out, and lessons learned from clients and mentors over the years.
Welcome in for another Healthy, Wealthy, and Wise Retirement. And as always, I'm your host, Lauren Sherman. And today we have a very special guest in Terry Butler. Over the years, Terry has become a friend, and I would say even a bit of a mentor in many ways too. So today he's going to share with us a mission that he's become very passionate about, which is bringing clean water to the people of Ghana. So before we jump into everything, Terry, great to see you again, and
You
thanks
as
for
well.
joining me to have this conversation.
You as well, Lauren.
It's always good to see your face. Um, so before we get into everything with GlobeServe and Ghana, can you maybe just tell the listeners just a little bit of your background? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. I could go back to where I was in grade school, but I won't go back that far. Um, I really came involved in mission and ministries when I was working at Vermeer back in the 1980s or 1990s, early 2000, and I had the opportunity to work with the Vermeer Charitable Foundation. So I did a lot of traveling on behalf of them. I was kind of their hands and feet for some of the grant requests that they had. So it took me all over the world. Um, I literally went through 3 passports, visited a lot of different countries, not a lot of glamorous places. It was either post-disaster or it was in preparation for trying to help people that are in a very dire situation, improve their living conditions. And so one of the things that I noticed in almost every location I went, it was that there was something that had to do with water, whether it was cholera, a cholera outbreak, or whether it was people that were dying from waterborne diseases. And so that's really how I developed the passion. I have an environmental and safety engineering background, so being responsible for that at Vermeer, I um, I got on the board of a company, an organization called Safe Water International Ministries, Swim for Him. And that's where I really started to help support that ministry in bringing a technology that could make water safe before they would have an opportunity to get a well, and even after they get a well, continue to make it safe.
Yeah, I'm even learning a little bit about your background. I knew a lot of that, but that's a little bit more info that I didn't know too. Um, so maybe big picture, let's start because the clean water is within this mission of GlobeServe, but from a bigger, broader perspective, can you give a 10,000-foot view of what GlobeServe is?
Sure. GlobeServe is a ministry that was started in 1996 by Pastor Sam Dunya and his wife Yanhild. And it started in a part of Ghana, which is a center part called Adodomi. And so after he was ordained he's a native Ghanaian, met his wife on a mercy ship when he was doing that ministry, and then went to seminary in the Twin Cities. And when he was commissioned, he was sent back to Ghana, to Adodomi, start a GlobeServe church. And it's amazing, this man's faith and his faithfulness in carrying out the ministry that God has placed on his heart, because he started with nothing, and it's a mission that has a missionary church. There's a center for missions where they train missionaries before they go out, and a seminary where they do a 3-year program for training pastors, as well as a Bridge of Hope, which really is a social mandate part of their ministry where the water comes in. But they provide education on malaria, deworming, they provide clothing, they provide wells, they help to provide churches, so a structure to worship in, and vocational ministries as well to help people that need an occupation avoid the enslavement of sex trade, or falling into the hands of radical jihadist to be radicalized. And so, and then education. They have parochial schools, Christian schools where they help young kids get an education, and women and men as well.
Okay.
It's a
And we'll
great
add a
ministry.
we'll add a PDF in the show notes so that people can see a little bit more of an overview of what GlobeServe is, who they are. And it may sound familiar for some listeners because back, I don't know if you knew this, Terry, but back in October of 2022, I think it was, I did an episode. It was called Five Charitable Giving Ideas, episode 42. If anyone wants to go back and listen to that one, it was one of the five charities we talked about was GlobeServe, actually. So,
I'm on the board now as a founding member and been on there for 6 years, and it is one of the most comprehensive, well-organized ministries I've ever been a part of. With the social mandate, which is living out and doing exactly what Jesus did and helping to bring healing to people through, or reduce their suffering through social programs, um, like Safe Water. And then the ministry side of it, where they're helping to bring living water through the gospel, is just uh, it's a perfect recipe for success.
yeah. Yeah, it sounds like they're doing a lot of good things. So
Oh yeah.
within GlobeServe, pivoting now to clean water and where that comes into play, how did that specifically first come under your radar? Was it, I mean, I imagine just being involved with GlobeServe, was that how that came onto your radar with the clean water and the problem there?
Well, when I said earlier I was part of Safe Water International Ministries board, I was on that board for a long time, and so was aware of the 26 countries that we were working in to help bring a solution to make water safe to drink. So it didn't actually clarify the water, but it does by adding sodium hypochlorite to the water, just like we here do in the US. It kills all the pathogens in the water, all the bloodborne or the waterborne diseases, so that it's safe to drink. It might not look better, it might not taste better, but at least it's safe to drink. And a lot of places can't afford a well. A well is about $3,500 to install in Ghana. In other countries, it can be as high as 10,000. So if you can't afford a well, this is a great alternative to reduce the potential for people to actually die of dysentery and or die of other waterborne diseases by adding that and allowing it to kill the bugs in the water. So in Ghana, I was there in 2018. And so that, well, that was prior to me joining the board. I went as a representative of SWIM, Safe Water International Ministries. And my job with Greg Stout, the founder, and Rich Grant, the current chair of the board, was to go around to different communities in the north, primarily Muslim and unreached people group communities, over in Togo, the border on the one side, and and so as we went around, we sampled different water in different places, and we were able to look at it under a microscope to tell what was in it, and then figure out how much chlorine had to be added to kill all the pathogens in the water.
Okay.
And so then we trained their training class for GlobeServe, and they have a water champion that's been certified to be able to understand exactly how to use these devices.
Okay. Yeah, so we're kind of jumping ahead into the devices and what the solution is, but the problem is not just the water doesn't taste good, the water looks dirty. This was making people sick, even killing a lot of people, right?
Yeah, I'd say the mortality rate for kids under the age of 5 is 125 times higher than you would find in the US.
Wow.
And for aging adults, because of the dysentery, you have a lot of people that are undernourished. They're so skinny because they can't keep the nutrients in the body. And so in some areas, people are dying at a more significant rate than that. That's the average. And looking at the water sources where you have weep holes, which may be in the dry season, dried up riverbed that you're you're digging in to let the water weep into a hole and then scooping it out, or
Mm,
it may be a hole that's near a place where cattle go to drink. And again, that water gets contaminated very easily.
sure.
It's really yellow and dirty in color. It might be a mountain spring that actually comes out of the side of a hill, runs down the hill to a pool. That water is better, but it's still dangerous to drink. It might be right out of a river like the Volta River in Ghana. You're washing your clothes, your animals are doing their business in the water, and 20 feet down the river, you're collecting water to take home for people to drink. So
Hmm.
um, really the awareness isn't there necessarily about what the exact cause is. And so through this process, the educational part of this is to go into these communities and help them understand the danger associated with the water they're drinking, and then why it's so important to add sodium hypochlorite to the water.
I'm going to do a quick screen share because you sent a picture, and I think that speaks. Seeing a picture of it is just so much more powerful. So, what exactly are we looking at? This is one of those drinking water holes that you were describing.
Yeah, the picture on the right, where you see the shoe at the bottom of the screen, is a hole that is being dug, and then water will weep into that hole or run into that hole. And then they will reach down in there and they will scoop that out and put it into pans. And then when they pour it in a pan, they kind of let it settle to get any of the really heavy mud out. But then when they scoop it off, it looks pretty much just like what that lady is pouring into that pan for somebody to take home for their family to use for cooking and drinking, or making
Wow.
formula for their infants. And
Wow.
in this kind of water, you can add 40 drops of sodium hypochlorite or chlorine to this water. And in 60 minutes, it kills all the bugs in there so that it's safe to drink. Um, if it's clear water, like from a well or a mountain spring, you add 10 drops per liter. And so 40 drops per liter if it's cloudy, and 10 drops per liter if it's clear.
Hmm.
And within 30 minutes for clear water or 60 minutes for cloudy water, it becomes safe to drink. And these people are walking a long distance to get this kind of water. It's just a Muslim chief took me to an area just like this when I was up there in the north, showing me, and he said, if there's one thing that you could do to help us, it's make our water safe to drink so our kids aren't dying.
Yeah. Yeah, that picture is very powerful. I think we take it so much for granted that we can just turn on the faucet and have clean water and
Oh
don't
yeah.
have to even think about it. But so one of my questions was there's probably, drinking water, and you alluded to this, drinking water issues in many areas. So why Ghana specifically? I imagine being there in person was very powerful, but what made you choose to have this mission for Ghana?
Well, I was attending Lutheran Church of Hope, and I was talking with Mark Hofschneider, who was the missions director in 2016, about this technology that Safe Water International Ministry has, um, he said, well, yeah, maybe at some point we'll look at it for Ghana. And so in 2019, he invited me to go um, and evaluate the different water sources. And when doing that, uh, and being able to show with documentation and data the
I think
unsafe
I
condition.
lost you there for a second. Sorry about that.
That's all right.
Going back, you said you were speaking with him, and
He
uh,
invited me to go to Ghana in 2019 or
okay,
2018. And so on that trip, in analyzing and taking samples from different water sources across the northern part of the country, it became really clear that it's the only place to get their water. There's no infrastructure to pipe in water. There's no truck in service like you would find in the colonials in Mexico. There's just
okay,
no place to get water. So you have to go to these sources that are unsafe, and either that or die of dehydration.
right. Yeah, and it's just so hard to see people that are just so, particularly younger people that are just helpless and don't have a solution.
Right.
I imagine that was really powerful when you were there in person.
Oh, it was, it breaks your heart to go into some of these communities and some of the kids that I met and families. Um, you can donate a well for 3,500, and that really is probably, uh, you know, um, an ultimate source for a community because it changes the community where people don't have to travel a long distance to get water. So it helps the economy because kids can go to school. They're not having to go get water at some of these unsafe places and bring them back, which is dangerous because of some of the people they'll encounter on the road and
Sure.
or the animals that they'll encounter. But once they get back, they have to do this two times a day to get water. Um, it- there's no time to go to school for some of these kids. So a well is
Mm.
really a good alternative, but in the interim, to use a chlorine device to be able to make chlorine out of salt, um, it costs $50, but it can make enough chlorine to keep a village of 10,000 people safe. So it's a really low cost alternative bridge before you can actually get a well. And that's why it's such a good alternative to some of the needs that they're encountering in that part of the country.
Right. So really the solution, at least temporarily, is these $50 devices that
Right.
you put together, and then how do you get them over there?
There's always mission teams that are going either from Hope or teams up in the Twin Cities or other churches that are going to Ghana. And we just pack them in a suitcase. And they take that suitcase there, and then that gets to Francis, who is our water champion for Ghana, and he trains every pastor and every missionary on the technology and why the need for it. And when they go into a community, they'll talk to the chief,
Okay.
the Muslim chief in that community, and then he'll demonstrate the technology and then they work out a program for people to come and receive a bottle every week that they can use to dose their water after they get back from those weep holes or wells.
Hmm. And you just had a pretty successful event in the Hope parking lot this last weekend, right?
Yeah, it's called a build event, and we bring in or say a sponsor through um, Safe Water International Ministry. Swim for Him is their tagline. And so they come with the little table fixtures and with 15 people around a table working for an hour. You can easily produce 20 chlorine kits for them to be transported over to Ghana by somebody. And we had over 4 hours, we had 100 people show up. We had two separate cells, work cells that were working, producing 40 units per hour. And we made 150 units that will be going over there on July 20th to help support the communities that are receiving churches that were donated by Hope during the Lent season.
That's very cool. What's been the reaction because when you've done this in the past and they receive this help, what's the reaction been like over there?
Life changing. Um,
I bet.
in every country that I've seen it used, um, people say that it just, if you've ever been traveled internationally and they tell you not to drink the water, there's a reason for that. And if you didn't adhere to that and you had a glass with ice in it, or you drank the water or lettuce, and you got that Montezuma's revenge or that dysentery, um, it's hard to function when you're in that type of
Oh, sure.
state. And so when you can help people over the course of a few days where they don't have that stomach cramps, they don't have that diarrhea anymore, they go, hey, there's something to this. And that's a great motivator for people to continue to use it.
Right. And opens the door to further conversations beyond just water, right?
Oh,
Because
yeah.
yeah, that's you're meeting them where they need to start, just getting clean water, but then do you want to share a little bit beyond that of where the conversation goes from there?
Well, yeah, I mean, there's when Francis will train the missionaries, he'll tell them, that this is an age-old technology. And in the book of Second Kings, chapter 19, or chapter 2, verse 19, there's a story about Elisha who was in Jericho, and they were saying, "Hey, our water is unsafe to drink. It's killing our people." So this is a problem that's been around for a long time.
Right.
And he told them, he said, "Go get me a bowl of salt and take it over and throw it into the stream." And to this day, that water is safe to drink. Well, it's only through the power of God that that water was miraculously changed and made safe. But the technology of electrolysis, so you take salt, ordinary table salt, you put 6% solution, 6% by weight into the water that you're going to make chlorine from. And you take this device and you hook it to a motorcycle battery or a car battery, and you submerge it into that salt solution. And in 20 minutes, for example, you can make enough chlorine. You can make 3 liters, which is enough chlorine for a really large community over a course of a week. And they just, they take it back and they add a capful or 2 capfuls to a pot when they're
I don't know if I don't know if everyone lost you or just I did. I caught the you make 3 liters was the last thing I heard you say.
yeah. So I don't know if you have a picture of the device. Do you?
I don't know that I do either. Was it in one of those
Pictures?
attachments?
Yeah.
Wasn't seen.
But the what the device does is it takes sodium. So you know you have ordinary table salt, um, and you have it in water, and so it takes the sodium chloride that is the water. It's now in the water, and it turns it into sodium hypochlorite by stripping off one of the ions, and by making it an unhappy atom or an unhappy ion. It's sourcing or looking for things to go after. And so when you put it into the water, it attacks the bugs and it kills them. Um, and the reason it takes so much more in cloudy water is because there's these, if you think about the globulates of organics that are in the water, they're like little houses. So the bugs hide inside there. So you have to add more chlorine for them to actually get inside there, kill all the bugs. And then you want some residual chlorine like we do in the States. So if people stick their hands in there and they're dirty, it doesn't recontaminate the water.
Sure.
Um,
Yeah, I can share what you're talking about here now.
yeah. So the build process is to assemble this kit. So there's 13 parts that are assembled during that event, and they're shown in that top picture, and to the finished product, which is in this middle picture. And
Okay.
it has the battery clamps on one side and the chlorine producing device on the other side, and you submerge it into the chlorine solution or into the salt solution. For depending on the volume, we have a mix card, a dosing card. And so if it's 3 liters, it'll be for 22 minutes. So you submerge it into there for 22 minutes.
Okay.
10 minutes, you do it with the car not running or the truck or the motorcycle not running, and then you start the motorcycle, charge the battery for 10 minutes and then turn it off and for 2 more minutes. And then you have a 3 liter jug of chlorine that you can use then to add 10 drops per liter if it's clear or 40 drops if it's cloudy.
Okay. I have to share one more picture here. It shows you on your mission here, it looks like.
Oh, yeah. So the community on the left-hand side on the bottom is that's a community where I just, my wife and she was wanting to think about something to get me for my birthday, and I was looking at a piece of art that I liked, and then we talked about it and said, let's keep a gift that keeps on giving. And so she bought me a well for this community in near the Togo border in Ghana. They were traveling so far to get water in the Weepo, which is right above it, this riverbed Weepo.
Okay.
We were
Wow,
walking.
that's a cool birthday gift.
It was, we were walking probably 3 miles, and we come up on this. I could see the tops of a couple of people's heads, and as we walked closer, there was a line of people in this riverbed that was dried out, and there was this lady that was standing there, and she had dug a hole and was scooping the water out of this hole to put it in this pan for people to take home. And so, every 10 minutes or so, another person could get another thing of water. The picture in the middle above it or next to it on the top is that Weepo where that Muslim chief took Rich and I so we could get a water sample there and see where the cattle are drinking water, and then that runoff from the cattle is going right into that drinking water.
Right.
Uh, and then that mountain stream was probably the most clear, but it still had a lot of pathogens in it that needed chlorination. So yeah, it was quite the trip. It was a good trip back in 2018.
Yeah. And do you have plans to go back out there in any time in the near future?
There's a team going in July. I'm not on that trip. There's one
Okay.
in March, if anybody's interested. And
Okay.
the founder of the Globe Serve International Ministry, Mark Hofschneider, the former missions director at Hope, is going to be leading that team.
Okay.
So
So if people
that'll
want to
be
get
that'll be
involved,
in March.
okay.
Yep.
If people want to get involved, the one right around the corner is already full, I'm guessing, but March
Yep.
coming up
The March.
next year,
Yep.
plenty of time to
Yep.
plan for. And then
Absolutely.
beyond, if you know, taking that full step of going there, but how else could people help out?
Well, if anybody on this podcast is in an organization that likes to do serve projects, then, we could come in and set up the tables, and your employees could sit around the tables and make some of these units. And then you can send them to the country where you'd like them to be sent, or you have contact with, or, Globe Serve or Safe Water International Ministries can recommend where they could go.
Mm.
So, but it's a great team building exercise. The other, if you look on GlobeServe's website, you can donate to GlobeServe and put in the memo for water, safe water, either through a well or through a chlorine device for $50. You can, you can give to Hope and just put for the water project, and they have an account set up for that. But you know, there's nothing like getting a team around a table. It's such a fun building activity that
Hmm.
all you have to do is just raise enough money for the number of units you want to build, and that's pretty easy.
Yeah, especially if there's just a quick understanding of the why behind it.
Oh
Because I
my.
think, yeah, if you're just sitting around the table and you're putting stuff together and it's a little monotonous or whatever, you might not feel very excited about it. But as soon as you can see the why behind it and the people behind it, I think that would be a great team building. There's a lot of studies out there that show too that giving and helping others is just as satisfying to the giver as the one that receives the gift too. So,
Yeah, there's during those team building exercises, there's always 15 minutes that's set aside where John Battern, the one of the board members from SWIM, will give a presentation. And so he
yeah,
shows the slides of the people that are receiving these. Once in a while, if there's somebody, like on Saturday, we had Sandy from Uganda that was in town. First time to the US. He was able to come and explain how important this technology has been for him and his country with changing lives and saving lives.
yeah, that's
It
very
was it
cool
was
when you get the
really it was
firsthand
really good on
impact
Saturday.
of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very cool. Well, we will have links to all of those ways to get involved that you mentioned. You mentioned a few different ways of donating directly to Hope, directly to GlobeServe, and then setting up these group tables where you can build them yourselves. Or even maybe, if you really want to get involved and go there yourself next March, I think you said
Yeah,
you'd
yep,
be,
absolutely.
you'd be
Yep.
on the table too. So, was there anything that, and apologies if we cut in and out there a couple of times, but I think overall you did a great job of explaining the message. And was there anything that you were hoping that we were going to talk about that we did not cover?
No, I think you covered it all, Lauren. I think, some people have small groups that are like 12 people, or 8 people. Even if a small group wants to get together and do this, one of the things we were thinking of doing was approaching, Meals for the Heartland and, having water for the Heartland. So Meals from the Heartland and Water from the Heartland. And if you ever done a packaging event with them, it'd be fun to have a cell, much like they do when they're packaging the meals, have a cell where people can actually assemble these units as well.
Sure.
Um, that's one of the groups I want to talk to about another partnership.
Yeah. Yeah, I think more and more people hear about it, the more people want to get involved because it's like I said, it's just something that we take for granted. But I'd encourage people to check out the PDF that will be included with this one too, because really we can talk about it all day, but the pictures and even more the experience beyond that is really where it seems to hit home.
Yeah,
But well, Terry, I appreciate you joining me and sharing this passion of yours and this mission. And hopefully, it will get some of our listeners excited and want to get involved and help those in Ghana with clean drinking water.
and it changes lives. It really does.
Yeah. Well, that will do it for another Healthy, Wealthy, and Wise Retirement. If you want to check out any past episodes, you can go to our website, Integrity Guidance. Just check out the podcast tab. And we will be back in another 2 weeks with another episode. So until then, God bless.
God bless. Thank you,
Terry,
Lauren.
thanks for joining.
All righty.
Thank you so much for listening and supporting this podcast. If you've enjoyed listening, we would love if you took a quick moment to leave an honest review. Of course, we're shooting for 5 stars, but if you have suggestions to improve the show, we would love to hear from you too. Just click on the podcast name, Healthy, Wealthy, and Wise Retirement Podcast, and scroll down to ratings and review. Thanks again for your support, as this helps us reach a wider audience and help even more retirees just like you. This podcast is for entertainment and informational purposes only and is not intended as a specific tax, legal, or investment advice. Lauren Sherman is a certified financial planner and co-owner of Integrity Wealth Management, an investment advisor serving retirees in search of their own healthy, wealthy, and wise retirement lifestyle.